still move. That miracles still happen. Thank you this morning that you are amazing. There's no problem too big. There's no challenge too big. All it takes is looking at the mountains and saying, how much bigger they are. For us to know how much bigger you are than they are. So Father, just come this morning. Open our hearts. Open our minds. Let us hear you. Let us see you. Let us rend our hearts for you and you alone. Amen.
These posters. So this middle one, by the way, a lot of times I need to wrestle with the book of James, and I needed someone to talk to. While no one's here during the week, I needed to come down here. I need to have a conversation sometimes. I'm an audible processor. I don't actually know what I think till I say it out loud. And then I'm like, oh, that's what I think. I had no idea. So I needed someone to talk to. So I chose Ewan McGregor because he seemed like a guy I could really talk to. He just seemed really relatable, and he seemed to understand me. And yet at the same time, he's just no nonsense. He just tells me as it is. So I appreciated that. So I put a poster. That's more for me, not for you. The book of James, the letter of James, was written not for its intellectual wrestling of who God is, trying to understand the deep mysteries of God, the deep mysteries of faith from some monastic, secluded location. But what it is it's a letter talking about the realities of life, about people who are really in the game. This is not for people on the sidelines of faith who just want to sit and go, well, let's just talk about these high thoughts about God. This letter is written to the people who are in the action, who are taking the hits, who are sweating, who are injured, who are wounded, trying to figure out, God, what is it that I'm supposed to do? How do I follow you? Because life is crashing in on me, and there seems to be a lot of pain. How do I wrestle with that? And how do I live that? We'll save these really high thoughts about God for another time. What I really need is I need an answer to my problems today. And so that is the first picture. The next one is in chapter 1. We were talking about sin, and when James was talking about sin, he was using the imagery of fishing. He says, every one of us have been tempted. We've all been carried away and enticed. And that is a fishing term, saying that we have all been hooked and baited. And we have learned that this verse didn't apply to just a few of us, but it was to every one of us, because every single one of us has been uniquely baited according to their own particular desires. We are all in this. Every one of us has junk. Every one of us has issues. Every one of us, we get baited. From time to time, we all make mistakes. And when we get baited, it is really difficult to get that hook out sometimes. And it causes more damage to get the hook out than it was to get the hook in. And many of us have found amazing grace. And there are many who, they don't really think amazing grace is all that amazing, because maybe they never really took a hard look at their own junk of their lives, where they never really completely acknowledged that smell, that there's a smell that's just not quite right. And there's a stench to their sin, and many like to ignore that smell, to deny the smell, to put deodorant over that smell. But when you get a whiff of it, and you decide you're not going to blame anyone else anymore for that smell, when it dawns on you, oh, that's my smell, not yours. That's my junk, not your junk. What happens, that's when the grace of God starts to look really good, which is exactly what it is. It is our only hope. And that makes us amazingly grateful for what God has done. And for many of us, when I see what's in me, or I get a whiff of what is my natural instincts are, I want to run from it, or I want to deny it, or I want to blame others, or point the finger. But the challenge for me and for us instead is to hear it and to look at it, and if it, to smell it just a little bit. So that's been the last week for me. And it all begins in James chapter 3, verse 2. For we all stumble in many ways. Every one of us, we sin. We all have junk. We all have this inner cesspool, this stench. And if anyone does not stumble in what he says, he is a perfect man. And when I hear that, it dawns on me that nobody is perfect. And verse 8 confirms it. It says, but no one can tame the tongue. And if you could tame the tongue, then you would be perfect. But since no one is perfect, and no one will be perfect, it is a restless evil and full of deadly poison. And this is a great place where we get to start, is by every single one of us putting our walls down this morning, putting our defenses down, because every single one of us is guilty. None of us have learned to control our tongues. None of us. Every one of us has at one point or another, possibly even yesterday, set fires in other people's lives with our tongue. And everyone in this room needs the love of God. We need the grace, because the words that we have said have caused damage to others and even to ourselves. And this is not for your best friend. It's not for your spouse, husband, wife. It's not for your children. Wow, I can't wait to get the tape or the YouTube and show someone else this. No, this is not for them. This is not for your coworker or the person, your biggest enemy who just spoke badly about you. This is for every single one of us. This is for me as we do our work, because I have a mouth that is full of evil potential and deadly poison. And with that in mind, we get to pray. So, Father, Lord, help us this morning. Lord, help me this morning as we hear this. Break through with your Spirit with just a relentless truth through our denials, my denials, through our defenses and my defenses. And help us all to acknowledge our need of you and to give us your love, your forgiveness, your grace, wherever it is necessary. I ask this in Jesus' name. Amen. In the book of Genesis, the very first book of the Bible, the beginning of history as it relates to mankind relating and connecting to God. The very first sin was a sin of the tongue. God came to Adam and said, in essence, what have you done? I asked you not to eat from the tree, and you ate from the tree. I asked you not to do that. The one thing I asked you not to do, and Adam stammered, it's that woman that you gave me. It's kind of, he blamed God. It's your fault, God. You gave me, it's her. I mean, it's not just her. It's you, God. And we know that's true. And I don't think Adam was trying to slander God in this. I don't think that was what he was trying to do, but that's exactly what he did, was slander God. It is a criticism. God, it's your fault. I mean, you gave her to me. You should know better than that. You're God. And if God was to confront Adam on this, Adam would have an excuse ready for him. Well, I didn't really mean to blame you. I mean, that's not really what I'm trying to say. And maybe he did not mean to slander God, but he did criticize God. Paul identifies the focal point of the junk of our hearts in Romans 3:13. He says, their throats are open graves. Their tongues practice deceit. The poison of vipers is on their lips. In the Old Testament, one of the greatest prophets, Isaiah, he's kind of this great truth speaker. He's known for that, about sharing about how great God is and how powerful and magnificent God is. And he says, after he had come in out of the presence with God, he says, I am ruined. I am a man of unclean lips, and I live among people of unclean lips. Because you've got Isaiah here, this incredible, he has this amazing experience, powerful experience with God. He sees God in all of God's holiness. It's just this amazing thing that happens to him. What an experience. And the first thing that comes out of his mouth are, I'm a man of unclean lips, and I live with unclean lips. And what strikes me is kind of this initial first reaction, that this is what comes out, is this reaction, this awareness to the things that are coming out of his mouth. And I go, all right, well, were you swearing? Because I've had actually a bunch of, the craziest thing is I've had more people swear at me, or with, maybe not directed at me, around me. More cussing, and I'm like, man, it makes me happy sometimes, actually. Just I don't like it when people feel like they can't talk about, just be who they are. And so one guy, he cussed, oh, I'm so sorry, you're a pastor. I'm like, no, I am, but I want the real you. You're not offending me, you're not, unless you're cussing me out. But I think about Isaiah, who I'm like, were you a man? Was it just these foul words that are coming out? Were you swearing? Were you just stringing them out of your mouth? Were they just falling out? And I go, maybe he was just cussing, because we seem to think that that's a bad thing, or at least our culture thinks it does. I actually had a really long talk with my kids yesterday about cussing, saying the words are not actually what are important to me. It's why are you saying them? That is the issue. The words, we need words, sting words, but I'm like, maybe, all right, so Isaiah, were you just cussing? Or, and everyone around Isaiah is like, wow, Isaiah, you were like worse than a sailor. I mean, the things that are coming out of your mouth. I'm like, I don't think that's it. I don't think that's what Isaiah is talking about when he's talking about having these things come out of his mouth, having an unclean lips. I don't think that's what people thought. I think people were probably surprised when he said that. When Isaiah confessed to them that he's a man of unclean lips, I think that surprised other people also. Because I think what it was is God was revealing to him things about the truth, about truth that he told, whether it's selective truth, half-truth, protective about himself truth, or the fear of not saying all of the truth that was coming out of his lips. And God speaks throughout the Bible repeatedly about the damage that the tongue can do. Throughout the whole Bible, you've got the sins of the tongue, and the Bible talks about a wicked tongue, and a lying tongue, a deceitful tongue, a perverse tongue, bitter, angry, crafty tongue, a flattering tongue, a gossiping, blaspheming, foolish, boasting, murmuring, contentious, tale-bearing, vile, whispering tongue, and on that list can go about the ways the tongue can do damage. And the easiest way to sin with your tongue, the tongue can do a lot of damage and get away with it more than any other way, because I can say something, I can say anything. I may want to punch you, but I'm not going to punch you if I'm mad at you. Hypothetically, I wouldn't really want to punch you. I'm not really thinking of anyone in particular, maybe one or two people in particular, but I don't really want to punch people, and I could get really mad, and I may want to punch you, but I probably wouldn't, and I wouldn't do it for a number of reasons. The first reason I probably wouldn't punch you is because you might want to hit me back harder than I hit you. You may actually know how to fight better, so I probably wouldn't do that. It's been, last time I was in a fight, I don't know, weeks maybe? I don't know. I've actually never been in a fight, not in like an anger fist fight. I was always hid. I'm really good at hiding. That's like my superpower. I hide or I run. Those are like the two most important superpowers. Invisibility, that's an important one. I may not want to, hurt you with my hands, but I can shred you with my tongue. I can nail you with my mouth. And no one's going to arrest me for the words I could say. And I doubt I'd get locked up. And if I was really good, at this, I could shred you with my mouth and do it with a smile. And I could do it even at a distance, like an arrow. And I could hit you without you even knowing where it came from. Psalm 55:21 said, his speech was smoother than butter, but his heart was war. His words were softer than oil, yet they were drawn swords. And what this is a picture of, words that are soft, smiling, yet war. Softer than oil, but drawn swords. This is what we would call passive-aggressive. They look calm on the outside, but what is really happening is this deep aggression that is deep inside of them that is coming out. And the Bible calls that a sin because the power is in its stealth. Because you can't pin it down. You're not really sure that they're trying to nail you. You're not really sure they're trying to hurt you. And so when you try to confront it, they say, oh, you misunderstood. That's not what I was really trying to say. Or how can you think that you're just overreacting. You just I didn't do that. I was just kidding. We're just friends. I was just joshing, just blah, blah, whatever it is. We've got a response for that. If we want to direct confront passive aggressive, they've got it. I would rather someone come to my face and say it directly than do it behind a smile, because I don't know how to deal with it, and I hate it because then I'm not certain that you're really after me, and I don't know how do we solve a problem. What I'm saying is that the tongue has the ability to do major damage in many ways. People skilled at physical torture, they devise and study ways to inflict pain, and they do it invisibly. They want to not leave the bruises, the cuts, the welts, just lots of pain. The sin of the tongue is very similar. Picture it this way. As a physically stronger person has the advantage over a smaller person, how we want to come to the aid. We want to protect that smaller person from the very large person. We would want to, because it's not fair. But sometimes then maybe smaller people are the ones that become the bully because they want to make up for their small stature or their inability physically, and they never learn how to throw a punch. But with their words, they can bring great fear to their family and their friends, and even in a church, and maybe you know someone who has done that. Maybe you are that person. Simply even just by noticing how God put the tongue just in the body physically helps me just kind of, you put it in the cheeks and you've got it surrounded by my lips, and if that's not enough, it's barricaded by these teeth that are just designed to hold it in. But it's amazing that even behind these teeth, these bars, my tongue just keeps wagging, and it never seems to stop, and it just keeps going. My tongue is restless and ready to protect me. My tongue is ready to promote me and put others down if that's what it takes to promote me, to get higher, to give me the right impression that I want to be able to give you. I want to really craft words, and it just wags and wags. And I'm sure yours does the same. And because that is true, Psalm 39 says, I will watch my ways and keep my tongue from sin. I will put a muzzle on my mouth. And a muzzle, that's something that we think of putting on a dog. So it won't do what it is that dog is wanting to do, which is to bite. And I will put a muzzle on my mouth. And I think it's weird that he would say this. This doesn't sound very freeing and empowering. David is saying, you know what, I really hope my heart stops me. I hope wisdom stops me. But if that doesn't, I'm going to put a muzzle on my mouth, because I am a tongue wagger, a talker, and sometimes I say things before I should. Proverbs 12:19 says this. He who holds his tongue is wise. The wise person is the one who can control his tongue. And we all agree, well, that's really good. Yes, right, fantastic. We would agree with that. But stick that word from God into our culture, a culture that is based on the freedom of speech, even more than that, a freedom of expression. I can say what I want, when I want, and I can say it however or to whoever I want, and I should have that right and that freedom to be able to express the things that are really going on inside of me. And when I was a kid on a playground, some kid would swear, and you'd say, hey, you're using a bad word. You can't say that. And they would say, hey, it's a free country. Say what I want. You can't stop me. And well, that just settled it. It's like they had a trump card. Put it down. Can't stop that. Can't argue. It's a free country. Curses, they got me again. They're right. You didn't know how to counter that. You didn't know how to go against that. How do I win? They use that every time. It's a free country. I hate that thing. And if you believe that you have the right to say whatever you want, whenever you want, however you want, to whoever you want, the Bible says, well, you're just a fool then. You're a fool. It is the person who restrains their lips that is wise. So now we kind of need to get out of the culture and put this into God's kingdom context. We hold to the core value, Matthew 3:4 said, blessed are those who mourn. And as the quick summary of where we've studied this several times. We've learned that what that means, what that word mourning means, it means to get out here all the things that are going on in here. To get it out, to process it, to wrestle with it, to do it outwardly for others to help us. Blessed are those who are getting out here the things that are going on in here, and to have a high value of restrain. He who restrains their tongue is wise. That sounds a little different, because I thought I'm supposed to get it out here, and now you're saying keep it in here. And that sounds like we're getting conflicting messages, except that it's not. What the Bible is wanting to say is both at the same time. Get it all out. Get everything out here. What is going on in here, get it all out, but let's do it in the right way. Do it with the right people, in the right context, with the right boundaries. But then we get a problem because, with the right context, the right people, and the right boundaries, the tongue is still restless, and it gets away from me, and it still just runs. It doesn't want to wait. It doesn't like to hold things back because I have more to say. I have more to share. I have more to tell you, and it'll make me look better. Because I don't always know a lot about boundaries still. And more often than not, the person that we have an issue with usually is the last person to know that we have an issue with them. They're usually the last person to know what my hurt is or my grievance or my struggle is. And every one of us have been on the receiving end, and every single one of us have been on the delivery end of this also. Rather than coming to us, they do their work with 15 other people before they come to us, and then those 15 people have other people they want to share it with. And they do that work of processing, getting out here, what's going on here. We're going to do it with 15 other people because I really need to make sure I've got the right perspective. I have the right words that I need to know that what I'm feeling is justified and right. And we do need safety. We do need a friend, an objective friend, to make sure that we're not out of bounds, to kind of give us a sanity check so that we know we're not crazy. Because sometimes we think we're going crazy. But when you take it to a circle of friends, you're not now doing a sanity check. What you're doing is you're getting people to take your sides. And you and I do this. We do this. I do this. I have done this. I do this. I do this. The right person, the right context, the right boundaries. We know very little about this. The tongue is a fire, and it can set the course of our life. It has the power to do several things. I had 3 things, but then I realized we're only going to talk about 2 of the things this week. And so I was like, yeah, that sounds so cool. Like a real pastor, I've got this 3-point outline. We're not. We will hit ultimately 3 over the next couple weeks. But today we're just going to talk about 2. We're going to marvel at the power that it has to direct the course of our life. And he uses this illustration in 3 and 4. He says, now, if we put the bits into the horse's mouth so that they will obey us, we direct their entire body as well. Look at the ships also. They are so great and are driven by strong winds, yet still directed by a very small rudder wherever they are inclined wherever the inclination of the pilot desires. The rudder of a ship and the bit in a horse's mouth. And then I start to think about the rudder of a ship. Small rudder, very large ship, where the slightest movement of the rudder can guide a ship to safety, or it can really move that ship into disaster. And it doesn't take a big movement. It's not a huge thing that it takes. And we think a small use of the tongue, a small wag of the tongue, it can't really do very much. But what he's saying is it only takes a small use, a small spark, and what we think is insignificant to light an enormous fire. A bit in the horse's mouth allows a 9-year-old child to ride a massive animal. A 4-inch bit guides the horse back and forth, side to side, and the horse will go where it wants. And so does the tongue. Though it is small, it has amazing power. It can set things on fire and set the course of a life, my life, and the person who I slander, and all of us. And you and I we have all been on both ends of that, the giving and the receiving. Because it works like this. We share this small of information. It's a really good morsel, a half-truth or a selective truth. It was true, but we left a little bit of the truth out. That part made me look bad. So I am only going to share the part that doesn't make me look bad. Or like when I was in high school, I'd tell my parents, I'm going to go to the beach and I'm going to go play volleyball on the beach. And I would do that, so it wasn't a lie, but I didn't tell them what I was going to do for the next 3 hours after that. I may have only played for a half hour, and then I would go do something else. And so you kind of share this little truth, a half-truth, partial truth. But this next time you talk about someone else, and when we start to hear information about others and from our friends, I go, why do I so quickly believe the things that are even being shared to me? And why do we believe other people so quickly when I know I don't share all the truth all the time. Why? I just believe everyone else. Proverbs 26:22 tells us why. The words of a gossip are like choice morsels. It's like this perfect piece of dark chocolate or amazingly seasoned and marinated steak. Oh, just a perfect bite. I love that, and I would swallow that, and I would savor it, and I'm hungry, right, just thinking about it. Maybe for some of us it's like this. This little piece of information we get, it tastes so good to us. Man, that was a good bite. We love to get bad reports about others. We love it. And you may doubt it, but then you start to look at, well, what is it that sells in the tabloids? They're making money. Tabloids love to make money on bad reports. We want to slap. We get excited. We're starting to do bad. When celebrities fail or do something wrong, man, that's awesome. Yeah, nail them. We want to, and with our hearts, we kind of start to realize it's part of the cesspool, and there's a problem with kind of taking it all in, and it goes down into our innermost parts. You swallow this rumor, a piece of information that you get, you digest it, and it becomes what it actually is if you were to follow the digestive process. It becomes a part of you. It's what you believe, and now that rumor is believed as fact. It's a strongly held opinion that we don't have all the information, and this is where then we make another mistake. We start to share that now as a fact with others because it becomes a fact to us, and we share it with anyone who will listen, and we'll talk about this all week because, man, I've got a really good piece of information, and I'm the one I have it. You got to come to me to get it. Man, that makes me look good. And what we need to do is we need to know the things that drive us. And we need to know what it is that makes our tongues wag, and to receive these juicy morsels that taste so good, because if we never learn why we do it, we will never be able to stop it, and we will just continue on and on and on. And here's why we trace it and we'll pass it on. It's because we have no rudder on our ship, we have no bit in our mouth, and we have no restraint, and we don't know about muzzles, we don't know about boundaries. About talking to the right person, not the 15 people about the problem. And because we don't have restraint, the course of a life as a talker, and the course of the life is about the person who's being talked about. Impressions are now made, opinions are being formed, judgments are finalized, and the damage is done. And this leads to the second thing that I want us to marvel at: the power of the tongue to damage people. Many years ago, there was a famous singer, Andre Crouch, is a Christian artist who was arrested for possession of cocaine. Everyone immediately jumped on the news. It was everywhere. Everyone. Opinions were formed. Decisions were immediately made. One day later, it was found that the white powder that was discovered was actually a residue from his wife's baking powder on the way to a potluck dinner. Absolutely innocent. Only one day had transpired between the finding and the arresting and realizing what it was, but impressions had been made, opinions formed, judgments were finalized, and the damage has been done. Retractions were made in the media. They were put in the papers, they were buried in the back. They were minimal. His reputation and his career was destroyed for nearly 10 years over a stupid thing. And while damage is done to others, ultimately those who have a restless tongue like me, and like every one of you, that the restlessness of our tongue does more damage to me, for the arrows of half-truths and selective truths and slander, they do hurt people. Psalm 64:7 says, God shoots back arrows of his own, and suddenly they will be wounded. Well, who is this they? Those who shoot the arrows, their own tongue is against them. All who see them will shake the head. James uses the image of a fire to show the damage that a tongue can do. Because if I'm hanging out with Kristen, we're hanging out, talking about worship, and I throw a glass of water on her. I mean, that water has no potential of becoming a flood in her life. James uses the imagery of fire on purpose because the nature of fire, a very small thing, can spread and grow and spread and spread. That's the nature of fire. As our words spread in the right context, the right place, the right boundaries, fire can actually be a really good thing. We need fire. Fire is good for cooking. Fire is good for heating our houses and our wherever it is that we live. And campfires, I mean, if you're going to have s'mores, we need to have a campfire. Every kid is dreaming it. I love the smell. You want to go to bed feeling like I still smell like campfire. It's just this coziness. But as long as that fire stays in the right context, we love it, and it's a really good thing. But if that spark starts to jump out and maybe starts a forest fire, it doesn't even need an explosion. We're not talking about a huge event. We're just talking a very small, tiny little spark that jumps out. Like the person who throws a cigarette out of their window as they're driving, and they make no connection to the incredible fire that they're seeing on the news later that night. They're sitting in their hotel going, man, what a jerk. Who is this idiot that started this enormous fire, having no connection to the damage that they did because they're not present. But the damage is done. They should arrest that guy. It's you. The spark, that cigarette, the thing that came out, a false report, a half-truth. Juicy rumor can ruin a reputation. It can destroy a marriage, can cripple a church, and the things that are burnt can't be unburnt. That's the thing. And that's another reason James gives this imagery, is it can't be undone, though it can be forgiven, things can be regrown, but the damage is done and it takes time to heal and it takes time to restore. When I was 2 years old, one of my earliest memories of my life, I have a memory when I was 2, climbing up on a kitchen counter. My dad left. We were living in a little mobile home thing, and my dad was going out to get the paper. I remember it still so clearly. We used to have a coffee pot on the counter, and it was an old percolator. It was silver, and the top you could see the coffee spluttering up. And I remember reaching out and grabbing it and pulling it to me because it looked so cool. And I then spent 2 weeks in the hospital with second, third degree burns. And my legs and my feet were scalded very badly. I still have scars on both feet. Scars heal. Damage that is done can heal. But what is burned cannot be unburnt. My body did heal, but I will forever, till the day I die, I will carry scars on my feet and on my legs as visible reminders of the pain and damage that I once suffered. And I don't really grow hair on that part of my leg, so it's kind of weird. There's a story of a priest in the Church of England who had a man come to him the man used to be in his church. He said, 3 years ago I was angry at a decision that you made in the church, and for 3 years I shared my anger with everyone at the decisions that you made leading this church, and recently I became aware of the damage that I've done, and I'm sorry. He came repentant, and he said, I came to say I'm sorry, and will you forgive me? The priest knew about this because word had already come back to him many times. He says, yes, I will forgive you, but I want you to do one thing. Please do one thing for me. If you could help, it would help in making restitution. And the guy agreed to do it, and he said, go get a large feather pillow and come back here. So the man did. And when he came back with a feather pillow, they walked up to the top of the bell tower of the church where the priest cut the pillow and kind of started flapping the pillow and letting all the feathers fly out as they were caught by the wind. And you could just see this cloud of feathers fly away all over the countryside. And they waited until all the feathers were out of sight, and then the priest said, here's what you can do to make restitution. Go pick up all the feathers. All right, despair, just came across this guy's face like, there's no way that I could do that. And the priest said, I know. And now you know. You now have a little picture of what you are saying sorry for. We can never feel the weight of the things that we say, but there is amazing grace, and there is healing things can be rebuilt, but it takes time. It takes so much time because the damage we do is so spread out, and it's carried by the wind. We don't even know where we send damage to. Morgan Blake of the Atlanta Journal, he said it this way. He said, "I am more deadly than the screaming shell of a howitzer. I win without killing. I tear down homes. I wreck homes. I break hearts. I wreck lives. I travel on the wings of the wind. No innocence is strong enough to stop me. No purity can daunt me. I have no regard for truth. I love half-truth. No respect for justice. No mercy for the defenseless. My victims are as numerous as the sands of sea, and often as innocent. I never forget. I seldom forgive. My name is gossip, slander, rumor. The tongue is a fire. No one can tame their tongue." So how do we put out the fire? I kind of just want to end with just a few words of advice to help me, to help us as we put out fires. The first is to have the moral courage that when the fire comes, you be a wet blanket or a glass of water. Help put it out. Because if the fire is only a spark, a glass of water can put that fire out very quickly, can put it out instantly. If the fire is blazing and out of control, a little glass of water is going to do very little, do nothing against it. In fact, it'll probably evaporate before it actually hits it. So, then a lot of times we're like, it's not even worth it. You do it anyway. Throw that little glass. Have the courage to do the right thing right then. I don't know if that's ever happened to you, because I've had it happen to me. It's probably one of the more painful things that's ever happened to me, where I'm sharing something and I'm really excited to share it, and someone, and this person, I remember, "Are you sure? I mean, have you shared that with them? Have you talked to them about that?" They confronted me. Well, no, and now I'm a little mad at you for correcting and stopping me, because it was such a good thing I wanted to share. You just spoiled my party. But I want to tell you, that is your best friend right there. That became one of my best friends, who will throw water on you when you need it. Where you're out with friends and you're going out to dinner and you're going out to see a movie maybe, and you're getting coffee afterwards, and you get this small little tasty morsel that just slides in the conversation, and we're all feeling good, and I mean, what can this one little thing hurt? But have the courage to stop it, because you know it will hurt more later. There's one woman who soaked me with her words. Never forgotten that moment. And I've never admired someone more. It forever changed how I viewed her. I liked her. She was a nice woman. I worked with her. Nice lady. But after she threw water on one of my little sparks, I wanted to be like her. I wanted her friendship after that. Have the moral courage to help put out fires even when it's not going to make you very popular. Or, conversely, maybe it would, because I wanted that woman to be my friend. Because she had the courage to stop me and to shut my mouth up. Second thing is to be slow to believe a bad report. Be slow. Put a muzzle on your mouth. Put a muzzle on your mind. Put a muzzle on your heart. About the things that you choose to believe. That's the hardest part. Choosing to believe. Third is to be wise enough to know when someone else's fire, someone else's issue, someone else's hurt feeling. This is a hard one. Someone else's anger sets me on fire. Because you know what rises in me and in many of us? This justice. I need to stand with you. You got it. Someone did that about you. You got hurt. I'm going to jump in. Your hurt feelings, I want to get in. And the picture that James uses is the fire. Their fire can start your fire if you're an emotional person, and I am. Many of us are. Be on your guard. I pick up feelings for others, and most of us do. I get excited when others are excited. I get upset when other people are upset. I stick up for others based on their emotions, and so do you. I want to pick up their cause. I want to defend them, and I don't even need to know what all the facts are. I do this with my kids. I have had to apologize profoundly to one of my kids because one of my kids started sharing. They did that. I'm like, oh, you never do that to my girls. Oh, and I came in like a charging bull. Based on what I had been told with good information, I'm sure, at the time. You don't mess with my girls, because both my boys are bigger than the girls, so you don't mess with the girls, not because they're girls, but because they're the smaller. Maybe it's because they're the girls, too. They're my girls. You don't mess with them. I charged in, and I damaged one of my kids. I didn't know all the facts. I let my emotions run. Proverbs 26:20. Without wood, a fire goes out. Without gossip, a quarrel dies down. Know that someone else's fire can set you on fire. Throw a glass of water on that fire and be their best friend right there. Fourth, be direct. Speak to the person that you need to speak with. Ephesians 4:25 says, therefore, laying aside falsehood, speak truth, each one of you with his neighbor. Have the courage not to go to 15 other people first. And finally, be honest about all the times that you have wounded others because you didn't have the courage to go to them first, because you thought those 15 other people would be a whole lot better before I go to the person who I actually am hurt with or frustrated with. And you and I, we do need a safe person. I'm not saying we don't need a safe person. We need a safe person to help us to process, to give us perspective, to have a sanity check. Am I off target or not? I need help. Fine, go to them. But do not try to get them to come and support you, to light their fire, so that you can start to build your army, so that you are justified, you are the one in the right. Have the courage, honest about all the times that we haven't done it right, because we haven't. God gave us grace. We need to give it to others, where we're honest at all times. Honest about all the times we got excited about this tasty little morsel. Oh, did you hear that their marriage is doing bad? Oh, man, they just blew it. Man, did you hear how they just totally blew it? They've got this problem. And on the outside, you're like, man, that is so sad. Did you hear about that couple's marriage or about their kid making that? Oh, did you hear that they lost? And outwardly, I'm doing the right thing. But inwardly, I'm like, my marriage is better than theirs. Yes. Oh, nailed it. My kids are better than theirs because they're, I feel so bad that yours, but secretly. Do you do that or not? Because I do. Anyone else? No. You are better people than me. This will just be my confession hour. Thank you. They thought they were so special. They're nothing. To be honest about the times that I and that we quickly believe a story when we didn't know if it's true, where fires were started and we didn't have the courage to put them out. And when you start to see all of that inside of you, and when I start to see all of that inside of me, because it is there, be very grateful for grace. How I have been forgiven. You have been forgiven. And to let that in. The grace of God looks really good. Which is exactly what it is. It is our only hope, and it makes me amazingly grateful for the things that God has done, because I caught a whiff of myself this week. And I came up very hungry. And I love that we did the worship night yesterday, because I get there, I'm like, I can't even open my mouth. I just need to sit. I just need to let the music, I needed to let the songs kind of wash over me. Amazingly grateful for what God has done. We're going to talk more about this next week. I just want to close in prayer. Father, I do just thank you for James. I thank you for James, who confronts me He confronts us. Because we could leave today we could leave this alone today. We could just go, well, that was just nice. Thanks. Or we could let it do what God is wanting to do, which I think for some of us is to leave it heavy. God, remind us of your love and your healing, but help us to not duck or to deny the work that you're wanting to do to grow us and mature us. Father, I do pray that you protect our marriages and you protect our church and you protect our relationships. And Father, protect us from the sparks that can bring down a forest.
Myself, I've done this over yourselves. Let me be filled with kindness and compassion for the one for whom you loved, gave your Son for humanity. Increase my love, help me to love with open arms like you do. A love that erases all the lines and sees the truth. Oh, that when they look in my eyes, they would see you. Even in just a smile, they would feel God's love. Oh, how you love us. The homeless to the famous in between. You formed us, you made us carefully. 'Cause in the end, we're all your children. So help me to love with open arms like you do. Love that erases all the lines and sees the truth. Oh, that when they look in my eyes, they would see you. Even in just a smile, they would feel God's love. So let all my life tell of who you are. And the wonder of your never-ending love. Oh, let all my life tell of who you are. That you're wonderful, such a good Father. Sing that one more time. So let all my life tell of who you are, and all my words, and the wonder of your never-ending love. Let all my life tell of who you are. That you're wonderful, such a good Father. That you're wonderful, such a good Father. One time I'll say that. Such a wonderful, such a good Father. So draw near to where I have drawn near to you. Lord, pull on the strings of my heart, for I long to be strong to you. Sing that one more time. Draw near to I have drawn near to you. Feel free to stand, everyone. And pull on the strings of my heart, for I long to respond to you. Oh, my love, and all And
request, just so you guys know. Prayer request for Ann and Gil. Gil's health is not well physically, and not only do they need prayer, but they live in a house that needs repairs. And we've been trying to see if there's a way that we can get help for doing some remodeling work. It's a lot of work, and if we can do any help, if anyone has skills, I'm not able to head this up, but if anyone is like, hey, I'll at least try and do something and maybe gather some people and even see what we can do, because I don't even know what that would be. I'd be open to that, so just to let that request be known. Anyhow, just wanted to throw that out there. May the Lord fill us, may the Lord use us, may the Lord's peace be on us, may His grace be on us, and we know His love and grace intimately and deeply.